Today we're talking about the Jets' playoff chances down the stretch. Mike White will start Sunday against the Vikings. So where do things go from there? My guest is the great Ira from Staten Island, a legendary Jet fan in the New York Jets Hall of Fame. So let's hit it and get it started. Gangrene Jets into Minneapolis, seeking a victory over the NFC North leading Vikings. Will we be shouting "Skull" at Robert Saleh's Jets this Sunday?
You're writing the story of your own life. Never allow another man to hold the pen.
Please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button down below. Super chat, baby. Cut the line. Can these Jets shock the football world? Now, let's talk about the New York Jets. This is the Jake Asman Show. Hit it! Here we go on a Tuesday. There's a lot to talk about for Jet fans. So to break down everything going on with the New York Jets, we bring on a legendary fan of the team. If you listen to sports talk radio in the New York area, you know who this guy is. The great Ira from Staten Island joins us now. Ira, welcome back to the show, my friend. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Jake. How are you? What's happening?
I'm great. So I knew you were going to be the first caller to the postgame show leaving MetLife. I sent it to my dad, and sure enough, Ira from Staten Island first up with Dan Grassa and Greg Buttle. Ira, how we doing, man? The Jets are 7-4.
All good. It's amazing. They far exceeded my expectations. We spoke earlier. I thought, 7 wins, maybe 8 if everything broke right. I never dreamt that we're going to be 7-4 headed to Minnesota and playoff basically in our hands.
When you look back to what happened on Sunday, you and I, of course, at the game watching Mike White in the rain. I mean, could you have ever imagined? I know it's the Bears and they don't have a great defense, but did you expect Mike White to do what he did on Sunday?
Honestly, no. I mean, what he did, his composure out there, and I brought this up, you heard me with Buttle and Graza. It was as close to a Chad Pennington performance. The way he surveyed the field, he was composed. He went from one read to the next read. All of a sudden, Elijah Moore's getting the ball. He's the third read. 11 or 12 of his passes went to tight ends and backs. No, I never envisioned it at all, and it's a good sign because guess what? I think it's his 4th or 5th year in the league. And I know this is going to be a sour name with a lot of people. Kotite brought in Corbett. Adam Gase brought in Mike White.
Mike effing White. What did you think of the chants on Sunday? Were you part of the chants in the stadium?
Oh, absolutely. I loved every minute. It was a lot of fun. It really. I mean, we've suffered for so long for 10 years. It was like a party there Sunday.
No doubt about that. So when you look at what he did Sunday against the Bears, obviously people will bring up, well, the Bears don't have a very good defense. Well, I'm looking ahead of the Jets' schedule here, and the Minnesota Vikings pass defense is one of the worst in football. I fully expect Mike White to be able to go out there and maybe not throw 300 yards every game, but Ira, I think he could be competent. And with this defense, you know this better than anyone. That's really all they need from the quarterback position right now.
100%. And I do agree. I think this is, the Vikings are 9-2. I get it. It's going to be a tough team. If they don't get pressure on Cousins, it could be a rough afternoon. But I think the Jets will be able to move the ball. My biggest thing that I'm looking for this week, he had all the checkdowns. He had a lot of short passes. You know the way it works in the NFL. They're going to try to take that away. Is he going to be able to make that intermediate to longer pass? Time will tell, but I think maybe he's growing. And you know what? He's going to finish out the year. Barring an injury, he's your quarterback to the end of the season.
No question about it. I mean, I think based on that performance, he's earned the opportunity to, have maybe a bad game and still get a chance to kind of rebound and regroup. Like if you just ignore his draft status, he looks like a legit quarterback. I don't care if he was a 5th round pick years ago. Like I think he's earned the opportunity to play a little bit here, barring an absolute meltdown. I think he gets at least these next 2 games against Minnesota and Buffalo for sure.
Oh, I play him out for the year because, to be honest with you, this is just my humble opinion. I think the organization pretty much knows where the Zach story is going to be. And personally, I don't think he's going to be part of the team next year. I think they'll move him. I think the question now is, of course, we're all looking forward. Hopefully we get into the playoffs. But to me, the real big picture here is Mike White, the quarterback of the future, or do we have to go out and sign one of the names you all know about and spend a lot of money on a quarterback?
And then the other question with that, let's say they do move on from Zach and they want to bring back Mike White. All right, well, if you're bringing back Mike White, you got to pay him because he's going to be a free agent. So does that mean you can't bring in Jimmy Garoppolo or you can't trade for Derek Carr? Are you thinking lower tier free agent? Like, are you going maybe Gardner Minshew in a competition, Jared Goff? Like, it kind of changes the type of veteran you're going after based on what Mike White does here down the stretch.
You are so right. And let's hope that Mike White is the answer, and they do have to give him that contract. And I would love Gardner Minshew. I was a proponent for getting Gardner Minshew last year. So, if you have a Gardner Minshew, Mike White combination next year and White's your starter, I'm all good because you know what? At this stage of the game, I don't care who the quarterback is. We have a quarterback that can play, that can operate this team and win games. To me, this next year, another draft, another free agent class, you're talking about the Jets should be serious contenders next year.
Yeah, no doubt about that. So when you look at this Jets team this year, Ira, it obviously has been led by the defense. I mean, let's talk about Sauce Gardner. We kind of work our way through some of the other members of the defense. I mean, when they took Sauce number 4, I think a lot of people thought he'd be good. You don't take a corner that high if you didn't expect him to be good. But could you ever imagine Sauce Gardner being one of the best players at his position this quickly in his rookie season?
No, not at all. And, it's amazing. And nothing against Revis. We'll see if Gardner turns into a Revis. He sure looked like he's headed in that direction. But it took Revis to his second year to really solidify that he's a lockdown corner. Gardner did it from day one. Now, listen, I'll take it. I admit I wanted the offensive lineman because I was really bent on building that offensive line. And I was wrong. When they took Gardner, I wasn't disappointed on the pick. I thought they made a mistake, but it was my mistake. Gardner right now is one of the top defensive players in the league.
It's just crazy to me the amount of respect that he already gets. He's gotten to a point where if he does allow a completion of 15 yards, it goes viral on social media. It's like a gotcha clip. But meanwhile, it's happened maybe 3 or 4 times all year. I mean, he has just been absolutely phenomenal. And when you watch him in person, he is physically just such a freak. He is so long and athletic. It is so much fun to watch him play.
When I was at camp this summer, I got up close and his arm length, he looks like George Gervin or Dr. J. His arms come down past his knees. It's amazing. And could you imagine once they get him in a real full off-season conditioning program and they put a couple of pounds on him going into next year, he's only going to continue to get better.
I believe Sauce Gardner currently leads cornerbacks in Pro Bowl voting up until this point as well, which is pretty cool as a rookie for him to be able to do that. Looking at the rest of this defense, Ira, I mean, Quinnen Williams is having an all-pro level season. They're getting a great season out of DJ Reed, who's been one of their better free agent signings in years. CJ Mosley's had a really good season. I mean, the pass rush led by Q and Carl Lawson and JFM and Bryce Huff. I mean, we could keep going with the names. I mean, did you expect the defense to be this good after how god-awful they were a year ago?
No, not at all. I like the moves they made. I like the Reed signing. And, boy, talk about Reed. How under the radar he goes because Gardner's getting all the attention. But you know what? Reed is right up there. Right now, I think Reed and Gardner are the best cornerback tandem in the league.
No question about that. Your thoughts on Robert Saleh? Obviously, last year, I think Jet fans were excited when the team hired him, but they won 4 games last year. So you start to have doubt creep in just naturally as a fan. What have been your thoughts on the job Robert Saleh has done coaching up this team to 7-4 so far?
Well, I was very vocal on it. I thought he still had to grow into the position. I had my concerns, and I still have a little concerns. But I think he's done a really good job this year. And it's the building, the team unity. He has them believing. But the way he handled the quarterbacks, listen, it's not easy to take the second pick in the draft and sit him down and, go forward the way he did. And he kept everybody together. He had the pulse of the team. And right now, it seems like he made the right decision.
No doubt about that. And how about just I don't want to call it vindication necessarily for Mike LaFleur, but all of a sudden you go to Mike White, this offense starts to look a lot better. I didn't hear anyone complaining about play calling on Sunday against the Bears.
No, like I said, I think Mike White, listen, every coordinator, we all listen, I do it, everybody does it. We second guess play calling. But you go back to last year, even though they weren't winning games, Josh Johnson, Joe Flacco, Mike White, they all operated this offense, and it looked like a good functioning offense. Okay, nothing against Zach Wilson. I think he just mentally doesn't get the game right now. I just think he has mechanical problems. But this LaFleur has done a really nice job, and it shows. I mean, the playbook was no different this week than it's been all year. The difference is White was able to stand in the pocket. He had time. He was able to go from read to read to read. Zach he's not at that stage right now.
Another rookie I want to ask you about, Garrett Wilson. You've seen a lot of Jet receivers over the years. I mean, Garrett Wilson looks like he has the makings of someone who's going to be here for a very long time. Your thoughts on what you've seen from him this year?
I'm amazed of his burst and how he could elude defenders. Like that move he put on that guy, he broke those guys' ankles when he went in for that touchdown. He just changed directions and he took it to the house. And I'll tell you the truth, Wesley, Maynard, Corbett, you want to throw an out to, and I know it was a short-lived career. If I'm leaving anybody out, I'm sorry. But I'll tell you right now, Garrett Wilson, he sure looks like he has the makings of maybe reaching Don Maynard status.
Big picture question for you. What's your level of confidence in the coach and in the GM tandem here? Like, regardless of what happens here with Mike White down the stretch, I think both Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh have certainly earned more years together. Douglas in particular has earned the right to figure out what he wants to do at quarterback going forward, even if Zach Wilson turns out to be a miss. Just what's your level of confidence in the future of this team? Because they're really young right now. They're clearly ahead of schedule, and hopefully this is just the start of sustained winning for this team going forward.
Well, that's a great point you bring up. I had my question marks going into the season, especially after the summer. There were some things I didn't like, but the job Douglas has done, granted, it looks like he missed on Wilson, he missed on Becton, but at the end of the day, look at the roster he built. I mean, you have 52 players that are ready to make a big time playoff push if they could get in. The big question's a question mark, and him and Saleh are connected at the hip. They're on the same page. The team believes in themselves. When was the last time we spoke about a Jet team with what we just talked about? I don't know. I can't answer that.
It's been far too long. We'll get back to our conversation with the great Ira from Staten Island in a moment. I want to pause real quick to talk about Mojo. Mojo is the sports stock exchange. If you're in the state of New Jersey, scan that QR code right up there on the screen and download the Mojo app. Get your first stock free. That could be worth up to $10,000. Stock market just opened up if you're watching live 13 minutes ago. So start investing immediately if you're in Jersey. Mike White stock, let's put that up on the screen, currently trading at $3.89. We just talked about it with Ira. Vikings pass defense is near the bottom in the NFL. I believe they're 30th going into this game on Sunday, which means Mike White has a chance to put together another really good performance statistically. I'm investing in Mike White stock. You could too. Download that Mojo app. QR code's going up on the screen. If you don't want to invest in Mike White, perhaps I can interest you in some Elijah Moore stock. Seems like Elijah Moore had that breakout game last week. I suspect that should continue going forward. Download the Mojo app and start trading your favorite player stock today. Let's get back to our conversation now with the great Ira from Staten Island. Ira, here's my question for you. Will the Jets ever wear green jerseys at all this season?
I go with calmer. I say no, leave them off. Just go with the white and the black. That's it. I'm good to it. You know what? Save the green for the playoffs if they want. Oh, I have a question for you, if that's okay.
Of course.
How about the running back stable that they have right now? Look at the job that Ty Johnson, but more so what Zonovan did. I mean, it's amazing. What Knight came in and the game he played, and you saw it every day at training camp. And I believe he wore number 35. You say, oh, look at this kid. This kid deserves to be on the 53, this and that. And all of a sudden, he gets a shot. They go on from Robinson. They put him in the game this week, and he made his name. I mean, I think going down the stretch here, I think he could be a real impact for this team.
Yeah, just the fact that they were willing to sit James Robinson, I think speaks volumes about, the culture being so different inside that building. I mean, here's the guy they traded for, and they're sitting him down before a huge game at home, playing, an undrafted free agent over him, and it actually worked. Like in the past, that wouldn't work, and the Jets would be crucified for that decision. To be the first question to Saleh if they lost the game. Why didn't James Robinson play? Yet here's Bam Knight coming in, making plays. Ty Johnson getting more opportunities because Michael Carter went down. He's making plays. It was unbelievable to watch this running game take over the game in the second half.
It really was. And once again, Lamont Jordan, Curtis Martin, Boozer Snell, But you're talking, we have 4 solid backs, and it's very unfortunate what happened to Hall. But you imagine next year he comes back healthy, and now all of a sudden one of these guys is going to be not going to be on the team. They can't carry 6 running backs.
No doubt. Yeah, here's a question I have for you because you brought up being at camp all summer. There was a lot of reports over the summer that Flacco outplayed Mike White, and Robert Saleh told the Michael Kay show yesterday that the reason why Flacco was the number 2 instead of White was because he earned it. Did you see that as well? Like, what did you see over the summer at training camp when you were watching these quarterbacks?
Well, I thought Flacco was the best quarterback in camp. Zach, I was kind of disappointed in what I saw. There were certain things I thought he improved on, but for the most part, I really didn't see as much improvement as the Jets would say publicly. And for Mike White, as the third quarterback, he's playing with a bunch of kids that aren't even on the team anymore. So you don't know how he was erratic in camp, but you don't know if it's because he's throwing to receivers that aren't in the league right now. He really wasn't getting valuable time. But and I said this with Kay yesterday. I said it 2 weeks ago. When they elevated White to number 2 prior to the first Patriot game, I believe at that point the Jets were already, the roots were being set for them to turn to him if need be. And it kind of worked out.
No question about that. So, Ira, let's talk about your Jet fandom here before we open it up to some comments and questions for you to wrap up our interview with you here. Your fandom, I mean, it's legendary. How many road games over the years would you say that you've attended, following this Jets football team?
Oh, I don't know, 25. It has to be well over 200 road games. And like I told you before, I'm God willing, I'm going to Buffalo next week. Minnesota wasn't in my plans, but I'm getting a little itchy, and by tonight I may end up booking that Minnesota trip. I don't know. I know I shouldn't, but I just it's in my blood. What can I do?
So every home game you attend, of course, long-time season ticket holder, but road games as well. What to you is the your favorite stadium that you've been at, and what's been maybe the worst experience you've had going on the road following the Jets?
Okay, favorite, of course, is hands down is Lambeau. Put Arrowhead up there. I always love to go to Miami because basically it's a home game, and I like the venue. But the worst experience I ever had, there were 2 of them. One in Indianapolis. It was either 2000, 2001. They're playing a Sunday night game, and I was coming out of the RCA Dome at the time. And at that point, I would wear Jet stuff to road games. And 4 or 5 guys, they made a circle around me. They started abusing me, and I wasn't looking to get in an altercation. Even if I did, what am I going to do against 4 or 5 guys? So at that point, I stopped wearing Jet stuff. And then I was at the Raven game, that McAllister game with Testaverde in 2000 with Al Groh. And at halftime, I tried to get into the men's room, and they wouldn't let me in there. So, that was the clincher. No, except for a T-shirt, no Jet gear on the road.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Except Miami, I wear my visor.
Yeah.
I just, at this stage of the game, I just want to go enjoy the game. I don't want to be hassled.
So who do you normally go to all these road games with over the years?
There's a couple of friends that make some trips. I may meet them at the game. If it's a nice city and then maybe we could turn it into a 2 or 3 day weekend, my wife might go. But most of the time, really solo.
That's crazy. I love that. The passion that you have for this team. Someone like you deserves a playoff season in the absolute worst way. That's why it's frustrating for me. You tell me if you agree with this. When I hear people who aren't Jet fans be like, well, you got to find out about Zach, and we got to just throw him out there. And it's like, find out about Zach. Yeah, in a perfect world, it'd be nice to have Zach Wilson leading this team right now. But the reality is they have the longest playoff drought in football, and they got a great defense. You don't want to waste it. You want to win as many games as possible. And if Mike White right now gives you the better chance to do it, that to me is worth it. You got to make the playoffs here. If you're trying to build a culture, you can't be bad every year and build that culture. You got to win games.
No, and you have the accountability to the rest of the team. And let's face it, my hunch is when they got back from Foxborough, they had their organizational meetings, and they decided, you know what? I know he was the second pick in the draft, but we have a mutiny in the locker room right now, supposedly. Players were not happy. You read the comments. You heard the comments. We got to go forward with something else. And they turned the page. And at least for 1 week it worked. And I'll be honest with you, I think he's going to play well. He may, what we got 6 games left. If we get 3 or 4 of the next games, we're going to be sitting in the playoffs. And you know what? I don't think anybody's going to want to play us because the Jets defense is for real.
No question about that. And they don't need them to do anything special. Just don't lose the game, make the easy throw, and they should win with this defense. I mean, this for me, this is the best defense I think I've seen in my lifetime as a fan. I think they're better than the 09 Rex team because this team gets pressure with 4, and the back end is just as good as it was when they had Revis and Cromartie. And I know that was 2010 more so than 09, of course. But, I mean, I'm just thinking of, like, recent Jet defenses in my lifetime as a fan. This, to me, is right up there, maybe the best if they finish strong here down the stretch.
Yeah, that Super Bowl defense was really, really good. But I'll tell you the truth, this really has the potential to be the best I've seen. And you just brought up that point. The fact that he could just rush 4 and drop 7, it makes it so much easier. You got to remember, Rex had to play games. He had to blitz a lot. He had to, send different things. Saleh just plays it straight up. The front 4, go after the quarterback, and we'll take care of the back end. And right now it's working. And this could be a big test because Cousins is a good quarterback. They're going to have to get pressure on him. If he sits back there and, he has a clean pocket, I think the secondary will really be tested.
What's your favorite radio show in New York City to call up, Ira?
Oh, you put me on the spot. You put me on the spot.
All right, I'll ask you this then. What are your favorite shows that you call into either on 98.7 or The Fan?
Well, I've kind of, the WFAN, they've kind of gone in a different direction. So except for like Niera Kim Jones or somebody like that, I've become really more of an ESPN guy right now. And Kay and Rothenberg and Anita Marks and Gordon Damer, all these guys, I just feel like I have a closer relationship with ESPN right now.
Very cool. Let's open it up right now with the great Ira from Staten Island. Ira, before we do that, though, tell everyone, I think you talked about this last time. What year were you inducted into the Jet Fan Hall of Fame that the organization started?
I believe it was 2017.
And you were part of the inaugural class, if I remember correctly.
Yep. And it was a great honor. It was very cool. And it's nice to see that they continue to do it every year. They, induct a certain amount of people, which is nice.
No doubt. And you definitely belong part of that inaugural class. So let's open it up right now. If you have a question for the great Ira from Staten Island, write it in. Super Chats will go first and cut the line. Fly Jets goes, why can't the Jets ever develop a quarterback? Your thoughts on that, Ira? Obviously, it's been different regimes, different coaches, different coordinators, yet here we are, questioning whether or not the latest top pick, Zach Wilson, will ever be a franchise quarterback.
You know what I really truly believe? I don't think it's strictly all about coaching. I mean, and Riz, but I think the problem is being a quarterback in New York, the pressure is so intense, especially all you got is basically Namath, no disrespect to Pennington or Testaverde or Todd or Kenny O'Brien. New York City is the toughest place to play quarterback. And I think they all get engulfed in the negativity. And I think that's why the coaching and the quarterbacks just don't make it because they're playing in New York.
I agree with that. I think there's something to that. Matt B writes in, did you listen to Saleh? Mike White's on a week-to-week basis. Quote, when Zach's ready to roll, he will roll. Sounds like Zach will be back against Detroit. That's what Saleh has to say publicly so he doesn't contradict himself right away. The reality is, and you know this, Ira, if Mike White goes out there and continues to play well, they're not going to just put Zach Wilson back into this lineup. Robert Saleh also said he never thought about benching Zach Wilson during the New England game. And then 2 days later, guess what happened? Zach Wilson got benched. So coaches change their mind all the time. I think Bill Parcells always would say, I reserve the right to change my mind. The same thing would happen here if Mike White continues to win games. They're going to announce him as the starter if they go out there and play well over these next 2 games.
No, I didn't buy the comments. You're right. You hit it right on the head. He said the right things. What else is he going to say? And but Mike White, to me, unless he gets hurt, he's finishing the season.
Look, I have no issue with that. This one is from the Highlander Prime, who writes, and I thought Bam Knight should have been playing from the get-go, especially over Ty Johnson. You were all over this, Ira. You talked about it at training camp, how you were impressed with what you saw from Knight.
Well, it's funny because I was talking to somebody with the organization during camp, and they said, who is this kid? This kid should be on the 53. And we had a brief conversation Sunday night, and he told me I was right.
I do love that. JJ says, do you see Zach being a starter in this league? I still believe in Zach Wilson's ability and his talent. He's not a finished product yet. I do think he'll get another opportunity from somewhere at some point. These things usually have a way of working itself. I mean, Geno Smith 8 years later is finally getting a chance now to be a starter again. But I think right now, if you ask me, do I think he's the starter long-term for the Jets? I'd say no at this point, just based on 6 games left, where the team's at. And if Mike White plays well, I don't see the scenario where Zach's on the field this year if Mike White stays healthy.
No, and that's why I think they'll move on from him, because this team, if they make the playoffs and the next year they get much more higher expectations, they can't roll it back with a guy who they just said is going to hit the reset button and they're going to try the first month to see if he got it again. So do I see him being a starter in this league? I think athletically he has all the ability to be that. I just don't know where his head is at. I just don't know if he's ever going to be able to read defenses. He's still very young. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, but it won't be for the Jets.
Artist formerly known as In Jets writes in, Ira, do you think Max Mitchell will play well without AVT next to him?
Yeah, I think actually he played well on Sunday. I think I can't pronounce his name. When number 70 went down, I think Mitchell came in. I think he played very well. He's been gone. He's been hurt. His first game back. I expect him to start this week. And I don't think there's any drop-off. And you know what? Next year, AVT comes back. You plug him in at right guard. You have Mitchell now at right tackle. I guess they still have to have an answer with left tackle. Who knows about Becton? But at the end of the day, this offensive line, once they get healthy next year, will be really good.
Matt B writes in, if Mike White could beat Buffalo, then maybe I'm on the Mike White train. I think really the key is, can the Jets go 1-1 over these next two? They do that. They set themselves up now with home games against Detroit and Jacksonville. You win both those games, you're looking at a team that, to me, is going to the playoffs if you can accomplish that.
I would agree. And this week, I know we got the Vikings on Sunday, but it starts Thursday night. I don't know if you're with me, but the Bills got to win this game. I want to put the Pats in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, the key with that is they got to finish in front of the Pats because they don't have the tiebreaker. So you bury the Pats, it gives you some wiggle room at the end of the wild card standings.
100%.
Luis writes in, what happens to Becton? Your thoughts on what the future holds for Mekhi Becton?
Wow. I think it's in his lap. I think they've given him the opportunity again. And if he can't get his work ethic right, then they'll probably go in a different direction next year.
Yeah, I think it's one of those scenarios where he'll probably be on the team because of his contract, and you give him a chance to compete, but you can't go into the year expecting anything for him as far as being a starter.
No, they learned that lesson this year. So I think either Dwayne Brown comes back or they'll have somebody younger. But I think Becton's going to have to earn his starting job if he wants to.
Highlander Prime writes in, regarding developing a quarterback with the Jets, fandom gives them zero margin for error, especially if the supporting cast is ahead of him. I think also what happened with Zach, it was basically like an extension of Sam Darnold. Like, I don't think Zach Wilson got the grace period from some in the fan base because it was like, you're moving on from Sam. Here's another high draft pick coming in. He didn't play well as a rookie, and then all of a sudden it's like, here we go again. I think just the scrutiny and the pressure got so extreme that it's tough. It's tough to handle all that. I think Zach Wilson kind of didn't get the benefit of the doubt that your young quarterback would typically get because he came in and replaced another failed top quarterback that the Jets drafted.
Yeah, the pressure on him was enormous. And like you mentioned earlier, this team far exceeded anybody, including the Jets' expectations to this point, is that the quarterback was holding them back. And so you add that on top of it's a win now team, and he's not ready yet. I just think a tremendous amount of pressure on him.
Jose writes in, late 90s after a brutal Jets loss, FAN was a must listen for a classic Joe Beningo rant and a phone call from Ira from Staten Island.
Yeah, I miss those days. I miss Joe and Evan early in the morning, even when Summers and Salzburg was on. But I do miss calling in early on Monday morning.
How long have you lived on Staten Island, Ira?
I moved out here in '82. I grew up in Brooklyn, Sheepshead Bay, and it's been out. Yeah, I'm 40 years out on Staten Island. Can't believe it.
And what was the first year you started following the Jets?
Understanding football, 64 with Matt Snow.
Well, at least you got a Super Bowl that you could recall.
No, I recall that very well.
Yeah.
I think I told you last time when Unitas came in, I got nervous. I kicked my mother and sister out of the kitchen because I said, "You guys are bad luck." I just gave myself.
And then since that point, it's been nothing but bad luck from after that game.
That's basically right. That's exactly.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show as always. This was a ton of fun, man. I know you got to run, so we'll let you get out of here. But thanks for coming on. If you do, in fact, make the trip to Minnesota over the weekend, I know you're going to represent this fan base well. So safe travels, and we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me. Have a good day.
The great Ira from Staten Island joining us here on the Jake Asman Show. We'll continue here with some of your comments and questions before we wrap up. Super chats will go first, and cut the line could be NFL or anything Jet related. We'll pause real quick to talk about BUSR before we get back to the Q&A portion of the show. Hey, hopefully last night you put some money on the Pittsburgh Steelers because Jeff Saturday, we learned, graduated from the clock management school, and his professor was Todd Bowles. The Todd Bowles School of Clock Management. That's what we saw at the end of that Indianapolis and Pittsburgh game. I bet on that game at BUSR. You could have too. We got the World Cup today. USA versus Iran. BUSR.com/Asman. Knicks are in action tonight. Bet on any sport at any time over at BUSR. Islanders and Flyers tonight. I'm on the Islanders, of course. BUSR.com/Asman. Any sport you want to bet on, you'll find the best odds over at BUSR. Future bets, live bets, you name it, they have it for you. Check it out, BUSR.com/Asman. If you're using another sports book, you're missing out. This is the better one, BUSR.com/Asman. Sign up and start betting today. Let's get back to your comments and questions. Let's see what you guys are thinking. Franco writes in, any news about moving the Jets Bills to prime time? I haven't heard anything about that, Franco. I feel like a decision on that would be made, though, in the coming days, because I think you got to do it 2 weeks in advance. So I think that would have to get done very quickly here if it's going to happen. Now, I haven't looked ahead to the schedule to see what other primetime game they have that week. So someone maybe let me know what the primetime schedule is for next Sunday night. But that would be the game to move, you would think. That would be the game to move. Now, I do think if the Jets had beaten the Vikings, or excuse me, if the Jets had beaten the Patriots and the Vikings had beaten the Cowboys 2 weeks ago, that this Kirk Cousins versus the Jets would be in primetime, which would have been good for the Jets because we know Cousins is not great in primetime. But, I say that, and Cousins played well on Thanksgiving, so who knows? Let's see. Chris says it makes 0 sense to quit on Mekhi Becton. You don't count on him, but you don't let him go for 0. Agreed. I think he's on the team next year, Chris. I don't think it makes sense to cut him. He's still incredibly talented, and you got to hope that he can come back and stay healthy. Am I banking on it? No, but I don't think you cut him. I don't think it does you any good to cut him. It's not like you're saving money on your salary cap. His contract is what his contract is. Mighty Buffoon says, trying to beat Buffalo, and Buffalo will be very difficult. We have a better chance against the Vikings. I agree. I think the Jets do have a better chance to win on Sunday against Minnesota than they do next Sunday against Buffalo, but I don't think either game is impossible for them to win. The Bills do not play well in tight games. The Jets do. The Jets play well on the road. The Jets have a defense that will travel. I think as long as they get competent quarterback play, they got a chance against anyone. So I think both games are winnable. The key for the Jets is to go 1-1 over these next two. You do that, you set yourself up with home games against Detroit and Jacksonville, where you're going to win those games and be a playoff team. That's the key. Nicholas says, if Mike White was the second overall pick, this story would be 100% different. Zach sucks. Look, time will tell on what exactly Zach Wilson is. I don't believe he's a finished product, but right now Mike White gives them a better chance to win. Noah says, why do people say Mike White lacks arm talent? Look at the game Sunday. How many passes were over 20 yards or further? So I think with the arm talent stuff, it's talking about like the bomb Hail Mary down the field. But there's no doubt Mike White in the intermediate, 20 to 25 passing yard range, he's got plenty of strength on that arm. What I like about Mike White, watching back the film, he knows what he does well and what he can get away with. He's just mentally so much further ahead of where Zach Wilson's at right now that you feel comfortable with him operating the offense. And I think a lot of that is Mike White's 27. He's got a family. He's got a wife. He's got kids. He's just more mature than 23-year-old Zach Wilson, who's coming from Provo, Utah. Like, Mike White's been cut multiple times. He's been through the wars of being in the NFL. Like, he's got a different path. And he's getting his opportunity here, and he's taking advantage of it. And let's hope it continues. Doesn't mean Zach Wilson is never going to play again, or he's definitely a bust. Like, I don't buy that. But right now, you got to ride Mike White because he's giving you a better chance to win, period. Matt B says, if we go 0-2 during the stretch, Zach Wilson will be reinserted. It depends how Mike White plays, Matt. What if Mike White plays well and you happen to lose 2 games here? I'm not convinced. Hawk says Zach Wilson, 72% completions and 101 passer rating and a win against the Bills. Let's see what Mike White does. Yeah, Zach played well, I thought, that game. Now, obviously, he only had like 154 yards, but if Mike White could go out there and have a similar stat line against the Bills with this Jets defense, they should have a chance. So I agree with you. What year did Mike White come out? Frank, Mike White came out in 2019. He was a draft pick of the Cowboys in the 5th round. Jay Stone says, White equals Warner 2.0. I hope. Larry says, Mike White looks very comfortable in the pocket. He does. He knows this offense. He can operate this offense. The Jet Show says, almost 300 in the chat, yet there's only 51 likes. Hit it. Please, everybody, hit that like button. Helps the channel grow. We're reaching the end of the month, so I'm trying to hit my Jet fan quota. Smash that like button down below. It helps the channel grow. Also, Jet fans, I want to make sure everyone gets jerseys ahead of the holiday season. If you want a Jets jersey for $30 or less, whether you want an old school Revis, whether you want a new school Brees Hall, whether you want an old school Joe Klecko, I could get you a jersey for $30, and all you have to do is follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Jake Asman and direct message me on one of those two platforms, and I'll send you a link to Parts Unknown. Make sure you subscribe to me here on YouTube and like this video to be eligible to get the link. I want to make sure everyone gets a jersey ahead of the holiday season. Bonesy writes in, did we get any more info on Carter's ankle? Bam/Ty Johnson show. Michael Carter does not have a high ankle sprain. Robert Saleh said it's a low ankle sprain, and there's a chance he could play Sunday. I would not expect him to play. So I would expect more Bam Knight and Ty Johnson. Maybe James Robinson's back into the lineup too. John, he says I was right about ZW. John, can you please email me, asmanjake@gmail.com, so I can set you up with the Is Good brand so you can get your t-shirt that you want. You have yet to contact me, John. You have till the end of today. If you don't contact me, I'm going to pick a different winner. But you want a free t-shirt, so you got to message me. Phil says, anyone see anything positive with Zach Wilson? He's had good games before, Phil. Let's not act like Zach Wilson's never put together a good game. That's just not fair. Mike White was drafted in 2018. My mistake, Hawk. Oh, John says, I DM'd you about the t-shirt. Where'd you DM me? Instagram or the Twitter machine? I'll look after the show, John. Let's see. Clarence says, if Mike White runs the offense, he will be good on Sunday. Agreed. He's facing a Vikings pass defense that is not very good. I mean, that's the reality. The Jets should be able to put up points on this Minnesota Vikings defense. And the way the defense is playing right now, I feel like they could force a turnover or two on Kirk Cousins. So this is a winnable game on Sunday. I know it's a 1 p.m. game, and Cousins is better at 1 p.m. than he is at any other time slot. But I look at this Vikings team and I see an opportunity for the Jets to win. I know Minnesota just beat New England, and the Jets seemingly aren't allowed to ever do that. But the Vikings point differential does not scream 9-2. They have put up 262 points this year. They have allowed 257. Find me a 9-2 team with that small of a point differential. They play a lot of close games. They have beaten a lot of bad teams. I just think there's an opportunity here for the Jets. The Vikings defense, points allowed, they're 21st. I'm looking at where the Vikings stack up yards per game. They're second to last in the NFL. You want to look at where the Vikings defense ranks in passing yards per game. I mean, it's second worst in football. They allow 276 passing yards per game. I think it's a good matchup for Mike White to continue his success. JJ says, if our O-line was healthy, who'd be your starting five? Dwayne Brown would be the left tackle. The left guard would be Laken Tomlinson. Connor McGovern would be the center. The right guard would be Elijah Vera Tucker. And the right tackle would be Mekhi Becton. I mean, that's what I would do if everyone was healthy, but that's just not realistic. Injuries happen, and no team's dealt with more injuries on the O-line than the Jets. Matt says Minnesota is beatable. Jets need to establish the run and eat clock. Same game plan we did against the Bills. Agreed, but I think the pass could set up the run. That's the reality. Luis says, obviously, Brees and Michael Carter are our guys, but who do you keep next year as your third back? Bam Knight? I mean, let's see what Bam Knight could do. I was very impressed on Sunday watching back the game. Now, I was at the game, so you kind of get a different view from what you do when you watch it on TV. So I watched the TV broadcast back and thought Bam Knight played great. Luis says, I got my jerseys from Parts Unknown, 100% Best Buy all day, fast delivery. It takes about 4 to 6 weeks, but the jerseys are legit. You know, I rather pay $30 for a jersey than $200. You know, let's be real here. I got this Zach Wilson jersey right here. Zach Wilson's future with the Jets is very murky. If he's not the guy, at least it's only cost me $30 and not $200 to buy a real jersey. Ricky says, Curtis Martin said, you never want to come out of the game because you never know who's coming in the game. Zach learning that the hard way. Yeah, but look, Zach's not the first quarterback to be benched and then come back from it. So who knows? Everyone burying Zach. Let's remember that we're still one Mike White injury away from Zach Wilson probably having to play a role here. So, root for the team. That's the reality. Keep going here with your comments and questions. Anything Jet-related on your mind. V-Man's got a super chat. I haven't read it yet, so dear God, here we go. Do you see the shade that NBC Sports threw at the Jets in their power rankings? We win on Sunday, yet the Pats who got cooked on Thursday are above us. I haven't seen the power rankings, V-Man, but to be honest with you, I just don't really care. I don't think it matters. The Jets keep winning, they'll earn respect. They were in the top 10 for a while, and then they had the 2 losses to New England. That's the reality. Christopher says, if the Jets suck this year, would they have let Zach let it loose more? Maybe. I think if they sucked, Zach would be playing right now, but they're ahead of schedule. JJ says, Ty Johnson haters were mad on Sunday. He played great. I mean, I'm not the biggest Ty Johnson fan, but he was awesome. Love seeing that. Bonesy says, as a hardcore Zach truther, White ran the offense very well Sunday. Better than Zach all year. Granted, it was against the Bears, but Mike White earned the next 2 games to show his stuff. I agree. Look, Mike White obviously had a great game against Cincinnati last year. Then 2 games later, coming off the injury against Indy, he had an awful game against the Bills. Let's see how he does these next 2 games. I'm not anointing Mike White as the answer, as the guy, but I do think right now he gives his team a better chance to win. I don't think Zach Wilson would have had the game Mike White had on Sunday. I don't. You could say, well, Jake, the Bears think Zach could have done that. Maybe, but the way Zach's playing right now mentally, I don't know if he was capable of a game like that, especially in the rain. So Mike White's earned the next 2 games, and then you reevaluate from there. But let's be real. If they win one of these next 2 games, he's probably going to start against the Lions. And then you probably beat the Lions, so he's going to start in a short week. You're not going to go back to Zach Wilson in a short week to prepare against the Jaguars. You kind of see where this is headed. There's not an avenue for Zach Wilson to play if Mike White is competent. That's where we're at. Making the playoffs is the number one goal for this team, as it should be. Nick says, different sport, but nobody wants to be Wally Pipp. Amen. No one wants to get Wally Pipped. For those who don't know what Wally Pipp is, look it up. Yankee fans know who Wally Pipp is. Phenom says, Zach will be back. Until then, Mike White, keep balling. Win football games. Phenom, amen. Franco says, I roll with the hot hand, and White has shown he can run this offense. Yeah. I agree. He gives them the best chance to win right now. Like, Mike White's had 2 of the best quarterback games the Jet has had in 20 years. Really. Since 2015, Mike White's had the 2 best Jet quarterback games. That's a fact. You know, if we ignore Mike White's draft status, this is not even a conversation right now. Maybe Mike White, I don't know if he's there yet. I'm not going to anoint them, but maybe he's the next quarterback in this league that was a late bloomer or a guy that just didn't get a real opportunity. You know, everyone brings up Brady. There's other guys, more recent examples. Russell Wilson was a 3rd-round pick. Dak Prescott was a 4th-round pick. Mike White was a 5th-round pick. Rich Gannon was a mid-round pick. He was a late bloomer in his career. Like, there are guys. Kirk Cousins was a 4th-round pick, or maybe he was a 3rd-round pick. I forget. There are guys. Roll with the hot hand. Asmanian Devil, gut feeling. Do you think ZW gets back in there this year? Gut feeling right now is no. But that could change, man. I didn't think Zach Wilson was going to get benched after he led them, or he didn't lead them, but helped them win a game against the Bills. Didn't see this coming. But I didn't see that New England game coming. So who knows? Everything's week to week right now. I do think, though, if Mike White has a bad game against the Vikings, he would still start Sunday, the following Sunday against the Bills. I think this game against the Bears earned him, a game where he can maybe struggle and then the right to bounce back. Jets Forever says, Zach gives us the only chance. No, he doesn't. Shut up, Jets Forever. How did Zach Wilson do against the Patriots? Ricky says, Rex said it best. I want to lead the league in wins. I want to make the playoffs, man. And the Jets could do it. Juno Rudy says, do I think the Jets-Bills game will be Sunday Night Football flex? I feel like a decision on that would be made today if it happens. So we shall see. Bonesy says, Kirk was a 4th. That's a good comparison. It's funny. Kirk Cousins came from the same draft class as Robert Griffin III, who was the 2nd overall pick, who the Redskins traded multiple first-round picks to move up in the draft to take him. Yet they ended up going with Kirk. So sometimes you never know where you get your quarterback from. Phil says, Jake, why will we bring Zach back just because Mike has a bad game? How many bad games has Zach had? Yeah, Phil, I'm with you. I think Mike White can have a quote-unquote bad game and not lose his job instantly. Now, if it's 2 bad games in a row, I think the obvious spot to put Zach back in the lineup would be home against Detroit if they think he's ready. I think when they made the Mike White move, they looked at it as, we're going to give him 3 games. This is before he lit up the Bears. They said 3 games. Home against Chicago, the 2 road games in Minnesota and Buffalo. And if you reevaluate after that, the obvious spot to put Zach Wilson back in the lineup is against the Lions, who don't have a good defense, and the Jaguars, who don't have a good defense, 2 games at home. But the reality is, if Mike White plays well, he's not leaving the lineup. They're going to try and ride him. Gmo says, Jake, you live early. Gmo, we go live when we got the guest on the show. So Ira from Staten Island could do 9 a.m. We go live at 9 a.m. For those tuning in late, we had Ira on for the first 30 minutes of the show. Definitely check it out. If you're in the New York area or you grew up like I have listening to WFAN and 98.7 ESPN, you know who Ira from Staten Island is. The man's in the Jet Fan Hall of Fame. 8 Gentile with a super chat. He cuts the line. Is this a week to take the Jets only +3? Yeah, I mean, the Vikings play a lot of close games. So even if you think Minnesota wins, go look at their margin of victory this year. It's razor thin. I feel like the betting move is to take points. Ragnar says, do you think you could be related to Andy Dalton? I've heard Carson Wentz more than Andy Dalton, Ragnar, but us redheads, we stick together. Rico the Pup writes in, last few games, it felt like just hold on and we can win this. Didn't feel like that way against the Bears. It felt like we were in control. It was over by the middle of the 3rd quarter. Yeah, I mean, the Jets dominated the second half. I knew they were going to win after Garrett Wilson scored that 55-yard touchdown. I had no doubt. But really, the game was over when the Bears got the ball to start the second half and they went 3 and out right away. The Jets weren't losing. They weren't. Bonesy says, the media is painting a picture that Zach's a bad locker room guy. I think that's unfair. Yeah, I agree with that, Bonesy. I don't know if it's the media. I think they're trying to, parse through everything a Jet player says about Mike White as if it's like a shot at Zach Wilson. I don't see it that way. Yeah, everyone's talking about how, Mike White's interview with Fox got interrupted by his teammates. The same thing happened with Zach Wilson after they beat the Steelers. The same thing happened with Zach Wilson when Michael Carter interrupted his interview with Evan Washburn of CBS after the Bills win. So people just want to look too much into everything. I think the reality is what Mike White said about Zach was telling, how he's been a great teammate and a better friend through this than he could have ever imagined. So I think a lot of it's media driven. I think that's fair. Jaden says, do you think Sauce can shut down Justin Jefferson? I think expecting Sauce to blank Justin Jefferson, who I believe right now is the best receiver in the NFL, is unfair. Just like Stephon Diggs had that one big play at the beginning of the Bills game a couple weeks ago. Do I think the Jets can contain Justin Jefferson? I do. I don't think Justin Jefferson's going off on Sunday. He might have some catches. He's that good. But I think Sauce can hang with him for sure. Gmo says, Jake, I was at the game on Sunday. It was pouring rain. Glad it was worth the win. Yeah, I mean, look, I was impressed with the amount of Jet fans that stayed at this game on Sunday. I mean, let's call it for what it is. It was nasty, Gmo. But when the team's winning, you don't mind hanging out and staying and supporting a winning product. That's the reality. Nick says, Ira's a legend. Back in the day, any show, any station you could find Ira on giving his take on the Jets. Amen. Amen. Ira is a Jet fan legend. Daniel Stern writes in, I get that the Jets coaches have done a very good job overall, but how much of a blemish is it that Zach hasn't progressed in year 2 and actually regressed? Yeah, look, I think it's a blemish, Daniel, but I guess time will tell, right? Like, everyone killed the Jets for Sam Darnold, and I'm no Adam Gase defender, but let's call it for what it is. Sam Darnold stinks. He's not that good. You know what I mean? Like, people killed the Jets for Mark Sanchez's lack of development. Well, where did Sanchez go after his Jet career? Did he have incredible success? No, like, sometimes it's just on the player. Sometimes it's just on the player. So time will tell what Zach Wilson is, but, I mean, Mike White's been developed by this staff. Don't they deserve credit for that? Mike White's been here the last couple of years. Mike LaFleur looked like a pretty good OC on Sunday with Mike White running his offense. I'll say that. Jake could be Jason Garrett's son. I could see it. Ricky says, the Bears game was all gas, no brakes. Jets never let up. Yeah, and I like the fact that they had to overcome some adversity. Like, the defense started slow. And they got settled in. They got to come out better defensively on Sunday, though, if they want to win. They can't miss tackles like they did at the beginning of this game. Graham says, Sauce looks human Sunday. Yeah, he's allowed to. It's amazing, right? Sauce allows a completion. It goes viral on social media because he just doesn't happen. That's how good he's been. And Sauce is also dealing with a calf injury, too. Bonesy, you're right. Balls be hurting. Why do these Zach apologists rather see Zach and watch this team crash because of shitty quarterback play? It's weird. I can't answer that, Balls. I want the Jets to win. I don't care who the quarterback is. I want this team to win. I'm tired of being a joke around the league. I want to make the playoffs. This team is good enough to do it. Mike White, at this given stage, gives them a better chance to do it, period. Super chat here from Jets NY. Let's take a second to celebrate that for the first time in 7 years, we're playing meaningful games in December. Sunday's game was the most meaningful game post-Thanksgiving the Jets have played in 7 years. And here they are, playing meaningful games into December. Like Joe Douglas said, that was the goal. Well, they're doing it. And if the season ended today, they'd be in the postseason. Albert says, hey, guys, don't forget to hit the like button and help the live stream. Thank you, Albert. You're right. Likes help. Subscribers help. And tell your friends. Spread the word. The most interactive Jet YouTube show is right here. Christopher says, is a game manager type play enough to win a Super Bowl? No, I don't think it is. I think a game manager type is enough to get you into the playoffs this year when scoring's down. But to win a Super Bowl, you're going to need a quarterback who can make plays. Now, let's analyze that, though. That doesn't mean you need a quarterback who's Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, that dynastic of a player. Eli Manning and Joe Flacco had remarkable playoff runs that led to championships. Eli did it twice. Eli Manning was never a top 5 quarterback in football. Neither was Joe Flacco. But you need your quarterback to be clutch. You got to be able to make plays when the game is on the line. So you could be a game manager for a lot of it, but what do you do in the fourth quarter when the game's on the line? Can you raise your game? Eli could. Flacco did it in 2013. That's what you need. I don't think you could just win with like the Trent Dilfer strategy or Brad Johnson, where you're asking the quarterback to do very little. I don't think you could do that. You can get to the playoffs that way, but I don't know if you're going to win multiple playoff games and win a championship that way. You're going to at some point, you're going to need your quarterback to make plays and win you the game. Let's see. John says Fox covers the game better than CBS. I mean, I like CBS's announcers for football for the most part better than Fox. Dakota says our defense is sexy now. I agree. Jets forever. The defense isn't great. We can't tackle and cover. All right, Jets forever. Let's put you in timeout. You've been a little bad today. The Jets defense isn't great. As the Jets currently, right now, statistically, they rank 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th in total defense right now. In passing yards per game, the New York Jets will rank, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They rank 9th in passing. Rushing, they currently rank, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. They rank 11th in rushing. And in points per game, which honestly is the most important thing, the Jets rank 4th in points allowed per game. But yes, the Jet defense is clearly the problem, Jets forever. You know, the defense that currently ranks 4th in the NFL and points allowed per game at 17.8. You know, the Jets haven't lost a game this year when they've scored at least 18 points. But yep, the defense is the problem. You disgust me, Jets forever. Let's see. Mo says, is it official Mike White starts next game? They've already said he's starting Sunday. So, yes. Bonesy says, I trust this coaching staff and regime. If they go Mike White, I go Mike White. It feels good when you have the right people in charge. Robert Saleh's earned the benefit of the doubt. I agree with that. Jets NY says, if we make it to the Super Bowl, are you going? God willing, yes, I will be there. I mean, I don't know how much money that's going to cost me to get a ticket to that, but I'll be there. I won't miss that. Phenom says, the Jets have won with 3 quarterbacks this season. That's the mark of a good team. We have to play the hot hand at quarterback. We need to score points to support our elite defense. Amen. And you bring up the 3 quarterbacks. I think Robert Saleh should be getting a lot more credit for Coach of the Year consideration. He's won games this year with 3 different quarterbacks. And let's be real. For the most part, the quarterback play has been average to below average in most of these games. Yet they're winning. The Jets right now, statistically, have the 4th best defense in the NFL from a points allowed per game. Number 1's the Niners, 15.7. Number 2's the Cowboys, 17.0. Number 3 is the Broncos, by the way, 17.6. Could you imagine being a Broncos defensive player? You have the 3rd best defense in football from a points allowed standpoint, and your quarterback, who the team paid $245 million, is horrendous. My God. I hope I never see Darryl Johnston do another Jets game. He was rough, man. Thankfully, I didn't have to hear his commentary because I was at the game, but he was not good. I think Joe Davis is a very good play-by-play announcer, though. He's the voice of the Dodgers. He replaced Vin Scully. He replaced Joe Buck on Fox doing the World Series. JJ says the absence of Sheldon Rankin shows on the defensive line. Well, the good news is they should be getting him back soon. Leroy says, so did number 2 pout the whole game or not? No, I don't think Zach Wilson pouted at all. Ashton Davis is underrated. I don't know about that, but I like the fact that Ashton Davis tweeted out F the coin. I thought that was pretty funny. Christopher says Sanchez is a pretty good announcer. I think Mark Sanchez is excellent. It's amazing the amount of jet connections there are in sports media. Mike Tannenbaum is all over ESPN. Rex Ryan is all over ESPN. Greg McElroy is all over ESPN. Mark Sanchez was on ESPN. He's on Fox. Damian Woody is all over ESPN. The amount of former Jets that are in the on TV or radio is astonishing. Willie Colon is on Sirius XM in addition to working SNY. Bart Scott is on ESPN, does radio in addition to being on SNY. Who else am I missing? I'm sure there's more, but you get the point. There's a ton of Jet connections in sports media. Texans Forever writes in, what would the Texans need to do to trade to get Mike White? Well, Mike White's a free agent, so nothing. You could just sign him. But I don't think the Texans would do that because they're going to draft Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. Boomer's on CBS. Yep, that's another one. And obviously he's on FAN. Herm Edwards is back on ESPN now. There's a Jet connection there. Leger Juzable was on SNY. Now he's on Sirius XM, and he does games for ESPN as well. Ryan Fitzpatrick, someone wrote. He's on Amazon. Yep, there's a ton of Jet connections. And the reason for that, I believe, is that when you're in the New York media market, you get that exposure to the media life and all the scrutiny and the amount of coverage you get. So the good players are able to kind of get their introduction to the media life. Keyshawn is on ESPN Radio, another Jet connection. So yeah, there's a ton of it. Cotton Sock says, rain doesn't just impact the offense, it also makes it harder for the defense to make tackles. A lot of run plays that broke tackles on Sunday. Yeah, look, it was tough conditions all around. That's, to me, what I thought made Mike White's performance that much more impressive. I mean, I was at the game. It was downpouring. Hawk says, Ian Eagle is the GOAT. I think he's amazing. I love Ian. When Ian does the Jet games, it's awesome. But he's so good on Westwood One calling primetime football. He's so good, obviously, calling the Nets or being on TNT or doing the NCAA tournament. I mean, Ian Eagle's the best of the best. My Holy King says the Bills will beat the Patriots. I believe every Jet fan should be rooting for Buffalo on Thursday. I've thought about this. Now you could say, well, Jake, the division, you want to get back in the division race. Look, as much as I want to win the division, you still play Buffalo another time. So if you beat the Bills next week, you got the tiebreaker against them. I'm more concerned about guaranteeing the Jets can at least get in as a wild card this year. So the path for that is for New England to be basically out of the picture. Right now, the Jets are one game better than New England. They got to finish in front of New England because they lose the tiebreaker to New England for the wild card spot because New England obviously beat them twice. So I think rooting for Buffalo is the best scenario for the Jets here because if Buffalo could beat New England, you potentially put New England 2 games in back of you if the Jets could beat Minnesota on Sunday. And that's huge because of the tiebreakers. Clarence says we won't have weather issues Sunday. Nope. Be a dome. Be a dome. We need the Jet defense to force turnovers on Cousins, and we need this offense to keep rolling. GD says, I think when Mike White was elevated to number 2 quarterback, it shows that he's been the best quarterback on the team, even in practice from some time now. Love how Saleh handled this. Saleh wouldn't admit it, and his explanation was, we want to give Mike White the chance if Zach Wilson got hurt. But I think it had a lot to do with the fact that Saleh could have foreseen a scenario unfolding where they needed to make this type of decision. The first time Mike White was elevated was after the Broncos game, after Zach was coming off 2 very mediocre to bad, if you want to say it, performances against Green Bay and Denver. Now, a lot of that in Green Bay was they barely threw. They ran the ball. Breece Hall went off. The Denver game, they won ugly. But that was the start of it. Then Zach has the bad game against New England. So you're thinking, oh, God, here we go. But then he bounced back with a good game against Buffalo. But Mike White was still practicing as the number 2. Then you have the bye week. You have another bad game against New England. Not just a bad game. You have one of the worst games we've ever seen. And at that time, Saleh felt like it was best to go to White. So I do like the way they handled it, right? They kind of eased Mike White into this opportunity. Franco says, I want to see Cousins hit and constantly pressured. Well, that's how you beat him. Kirk Cousins is not a good quarterback under pressure. Most quarterbacks aren't. JJ says, Saleh's the most likable coach since Rex. I think he's better, but that was a different era. Yeah, look, Saleh's got to win playoff games before we say he's better than Rex, but I like what we've seen from Robert Saleh. I think he's got great leadership skills. He handles the media well. The team clearly plays for the guy. I mean, they've won games with 3 different quarterbacks. They've come back in the fourth quarter multiple times this year. They've only lost 1 game on the road all year. I think Robert Saleh has done an outstanding job. I mean, the Jets won 6 total games the last 2 years. They got 7 already this year. Let's not lose sight on what this year has now become. They wanted to play meaningful games into the second half of the season. They wanted to play meaningful games in December. They're doing it. They're not like we wanted the Jets to be in the hunt, right? On the graphic, in the hunt. They're in the wild card right now. Christopher says, can the Jets please practice fumble drills this week? I mean, do they ever practice that? Like, when was the last time the Jets recovered a fumble? My God. Gmo says, Sunday will determine how good the Jets offense and defense are inside a dome. I'm looking at the schedule here. Is this the first time the Jets are playing in a dome all season? I'm thinking back, right? Is this the first time the Jets have been in a dome all season? Ravens, no. Browns, no. Bengals, no. Steelers, no. Dolphins, no. Green Bay, no. Yeah, it is. I didn't even realize that. It's the first time the Jets will play in a dome environment all year. That's got to be a record, right? For a team to go this long without playing inside a dome. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But we're about to go to week 13 of the season here. Chris says, Bob Saleh is a leader of men. Yeah, I agree with that. Dakota says, dome first time this season. Nice. Jets NY says, we will recover a game-changing fumble recovery in the Super Bowl. From your lips to God's ears. The Jets are saving their fumble recoveries for the Super Bowl. Okay, sign me up. Highlander says, there was pressure from players to put a more competent signal caller under center. That's central to his decision. Robert Saleh's got brass you-know-what. All right? I know you could say, oh, it was obvious, Jake. It's not easy to bench the number 2 overall pick who still was 5-2 as a starter. No doubt about that. Dakota says, Jets to the playoffs after 11 years. I hope. They certainly could do it. Matthew is predicting 3 catches, 41 yards, 0 touchdowns for Justin Jefferson. He'd sign for that right now if that's all he does. Clarence says, on Sunday, should the Jets put offense or defense first? How about they just win? Does it matter? I don't really know what that means. They're going to need both units to play well if they're going to be at a 9-2 Vikings team. I don't think the Vikings are as good as their record. Just look at their point differential. They play in a garbage division. But they got to find a way to win. Graham says, Clemens is going to crush Kirk Cousins. We can only hope. Dakota says Kirk is definitely getting hit. I mean, if he doesn't, it's going to be tough to win. Andrew says the football gods agreed to give us one fumble recovery so Quinnen could slam Tyreek Hill to the ground in exchange for never recovering one for the rest of the year. You know, I got to be honest, I forgot about the Tyreek Hill play with Quinnen, and that's in the damn intro to my YouTube show here. That's a great point. But since then, have they recovered a fumble? I think you're right, Andrew. Since then, they haven't. Juno says, you see the viral pic of Zach wearing a Pats beanie at BYU. I did see that picture. Maybe Zach's performances against New England make a lot more sense now. Ricky says, Huff will crush Cousins. We can only hope. Bonesy says, I love Salah. He's our future, but Rex holds a special place in my heart, as he should, Bonesy. I mean, Rex Ryan won 4 road playoff games with Mark Sanchez at quarterback. He went into Foxborough and beat Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. Rex obviously holds a very special place in every Jet fan's heart. And he roots for the Jets. He associates himself with the Jets. Snoopy says the Jets can run the table. Where do I sign for that? Highlander says it'd be a disaster if the Jets ship Zach Wilson off prematurely and 2 years later he's Rodgers light. I don't think we have to worry about that right now. Let's let the quarterback situation play itself out these next couple games and reevaluate. Jeff says we got a fumble against Green Bay. Did we? I don't remember. You know what? You're right. They did get a fumble against Green Bay. JJ says, when Rex speaks about the Jets, he always says we, and I smile every time. Amen. The GD Jet says, Sanchez was money in the 2010 playoffs. Yes, he was. Go back and watch those games, man. Mark Sanchez made plays, led game-winning drives. I mean, Sanchez's career quarterback rating in the postseason is 92. Nick says, Salah and Ryan are different types of head coach. Salah more CEO style, Rex the coordinator style. Yeah, there's some similarities, though, between them. They're very different, but the similarities are they're both defensive-minded guys. They both were universally successful and praised coordinators. You know, both guys are players, coaches. There's some similarities, but they're very different. Snoopy says, Jake, do you think Wilson remains on the practice squad? I think eventually Zach will be the number 2 quarterback. You know, it might not happen right away, but I think eventually they get to a point where Zach Wilson's the backup and Flacco's inactive. Bonesy says, Sanchez was great in those runs, had a bad first half against the Steelers in the AFC Championship game, but a great second half. Honestly, I don't even put a lot of that on Sanchez in the first half. The Jet defense no-showed the first half of the championship game against Pittsburgh. And they couldn't protect Sanchez at all in the first half. That was way more the Jets than it was the quarterback. And I'm convinced, and I'll go to my grave saying this, if the Jets got off the field on 3rd and 5 when Big Ben found Antonio Brown for the first down, if the Jets get off the field, they win the game with how well the offense was rolling in the second half. No one will not be able to convince me they don't go right down the field and win. Texans Forever says, how much do you think Mike White will get paid next year? I think it depends on how he finishes. You know, the comparable contract could be a Taylor Heineke deal, but we will see. Hawk says, Mike White threw a few hospital balls over the middle Sunday that he needs to clean up. He almost killed Garrett Wilson. I mean, in fairness to Mike White, it was a torrential downpour, and he still completed almost 80% of his passes. Like, yeah, obviously that stuff has got to get cleaned up, but He had a great game, so I don't really want to nitpick it. Zach Wilson's never had a game where he had a completion percentage that high. Let's just call it for what it is. Ricky says they ran out of time in that game. Yeah, look, they should have won that game, man. They should have won that football game. And if they went to the Super Bowl that year, they were going to beat Green Bay. They were. I mean, they lost to Green Bay in the regular season 9-3 that year or 9-0. Like, they were better. Juno says Mike White has a better arm than Chad Pennington. He does. I do see some similarities in their game, though. The way they kind of process and decipher defenses. Let's see. Snoopy says, do I think Wilson remains in the practice squad? No, I think he'll be elevated to the number 2. I think I already answered that question. My bad. Clarence says Mike White will be here next season. I hope. That means he's probably playing well enough where they're going out of their way to bring him back. That means the team's winning. Joe says, got to take first place this week with a Miami loss and a Buffalo loss. Well, I kind of want Buffalo to win on Thursday, to be honest. You kind of bury New England at that point. That, to me, is more important. Who's Miami playing this week? Let's see who the Dolphins have. Miami's playing at the Niners, so they could lose. The Jets really got to win on Sunday. That'd be huge. Because either Buffalo or New England's losing. So if you could go out there and win on Sunday, you got a chance for Miami to also lose? Come on. Huge game Sunday for the Jets. There's no doubt about that. I appreciate all of you for watching. If you tuned in late, Ira from Staten Island was on the show for the first 30 minutes today. We chopped it up about his Jet fandom. We talked about Mike White. Ira will likely be buying a ticket today to head out to Minnesota Sunday to watch the Jets and the Vikings in Minneapolis. Thank you all for watching. Please hit the subscribe button if you're new to the show. Like the video on your way out. Thanks to everyone for the super chats and the comments. I appreciate all of you. And I'll talk to you guys soon. We got some big things in store for the rest of this week. Go Jets. Talk to you all soon.